wala na naman yung info.
Okay. See, you have a drink and
Why does it keep popping out? Reset ko na lang. All right, so we are live. Good evening, everyone. Woo! This is Level Up Geek Nights. Hi, guys.
Yo, hello.
Hey.
So
Yo.
hopefully, I didn't change any of the audio settings. So hopefully, we are heard.
What? Sorry,
Whoops.
Definitely the audio settings going one up there. Proof.
All right. So this is Level Up Geek Nights. This is our regular podcast, and tonight it's just the boys as we discuss freedom because it is the 4th of July in the Philippines, and it is going to be Independence Day in the United States. And technically, the 4th of July is also the Philippine independence. Technically, it's not the declared independence. It's the day that the U.S. gave us autonomy as an independent country, and we have been free, quote unquote, ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're talking about freedom tonight. So by the
Yeah.
way, for those who are just joining us for the first time, this is Level Up Geek Nights, and my name is John B, one of your hosts for this evening. And together, I have the boys of Level Up. We have, of course, our master gamer and bear, Gio.
Hello.
Master
And-
Game.
Yes. And of course, our boss man, COO, child of owner, John
So,
G.
hello.
All right. So, before we start off, I just want to say happy 4th of July to all of our friends in America.
It also is the Independence Day of some other countries, or was recently. Like Canada Day is July 1. So that was the other day. And apparently a lot of other American countries,
American
meaning
countries?
Latin America,
Latin
They're-
American countries. Okay.
they're South America. So I say America as in like the continent have their Independence Day in July. I don't memorize them, but there's a when I was checking things out. So yeah,
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome to hear.
pretty interesting. Yes.
So, why is freedom so important? I guess that's the question that comes to mind. Why do we celebrate freedoms in the first place?
Well, very interesting. Why do we celebrate? Um, what is? I wanted to start with like, what is freedom anyway in the first place? No. Ano ba yung freedom, di ba? What is freedom? So how do you want to start this off?
Also, we have one viewer and Ninay. Hi, Ninay.
Hey, Nin. Our
Ninay
security.
is unable to join us this evening because she has a sore throat and she's taking
Her
care of family business. When I say family
Okay.
business, personal stuff. Right.
He came home.
Yeah, though she does have a family business, but that's
No-
not.
That's not what we're talking about.
So, ano ba?
Pero magandang question yan. I think it's a good question to start. What exactly do we mean by freedom or independence or liberties? You know, these are all
Yeah, there are a lot of things there, right?
they're all synonyms of the same word.
They all touch on the same, though they're not always exactly.
Ikaw ba, Gio, what do you think of
What is freedom?
Yes.
Yeah, being able to do what you want, basically, with being able to do what you want, essentially, without being yeah, it's basically that, really, honestly.
Yeah.
The, you know,
So yeah,
Though,
go ahead.
what? Yeah, you were saying?
No, I mean, yeah, it's. I mean that I don't really have much to say. It's just like what freedom is being able to do what you want.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm
Without
not exactly sure. Kasi I can't say like everything because obviously there are laws for certain
for certain things, right?
actions. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so freedom, but generally speaking, I guess, yeah. So freedom is like the ability to like to enjoy and yeah, to do a lot of things. And I guess that's the funny thing, because you can't really say that, oh, do anything, because most communities or almost all communities we're in have certain rules and norms and boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's what the thing is like. Oh, what is freedom exactly? The ability to exercise what your rights to do certain things, or ability to, I guess, I don't know, enjoy life in the way that you want to, but that's also again bound by certain limitation. Although there's some people who will be like, oh, I shouldn't be limited in these ways, can't have full freedom unless these things don't exist or certain things do exist. So it's a very, ultimately, it's a very nuanced kind of thing, because you don't have absolute freedom
No.
to do anything that comes into your mind, at least not without consequence.
But that's a question though. I mean, is it true freedom if you don't have that absoluteness of being able to do whatever you want,
Yeah, that is the question.
right?
So
I
I
mean,
mean,
complete freedom. I would
yeah.
say for sure not possible. I mean, without unless it's like your own, you're the only person in a country or something. Like
in the
you're the
world,
only one getting affected by your actions.
sure. But
That's the
in the,
thing.
in that sense, if you're the only person, and this is me being philosophical, but I mean, this is a philosophical topic, so let's go into it, right? If you are the only person that existed, then you wouldn't have the freedom to have friends,
You
because
have
there's
the freedom to what?
you don't have the freedom to have friends.
To have what?
Friends.
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 You don't have the freedom to socialize. You don't have the freedom to interact with other people because there is no
Well, I
other.
mean, no, I think you do have that freedom still. It's just that there's nothing, no one to socialize with.
There's no
Yeah,
one
but the
to
moment someone,
exercise that freedom.
It's like,
you can't exercise that freedom.
well, true.
So it's, yeah, I know this is one of those things that go around kind of topics. So, but ano ba yan?
No, but I think really it's a question of ano eh. At the end of the day, it's a question of being able to do what you want without someone telling you. Uh someone dictating the things that you need
What
to
you should
do
do.
or what you should
Mhm.
do, right? And I think that's it's when we look at the histories of countries that declare their independence from other nations, it has always been like that. We want the ability to govern ourselves. We want the ability to rule ourselves without
Mm.
you dictating to us what's good for us, because we should know what's good for us. Parang ganon.
Mm,
And I think that's why it's such a strong theme in a lot of stories that we come across, right? I
sure.
mean, in fiction, in anime, in sci-fi, fantasy, we always see that
Mm,
struggle of uh, parang casting the yoke of or the
oppression.
burden of oppression, right? Right. So like,
Mm.
I can't think of a particular example right now. I don't know if you guys can think of any specific series. Actually, for some reason, ang pumapasok sa utak ko is um, Code Geass. Not that I actually watched the series properly, pero
I've never
Well,
watched it either.
there's also I have watched the first season, and it does touch on that. But I guess maybe something more familiar would be, what was that show? The
I think something more familiar to me and John might be like Iron Blooded Orphans.
Iron Blooded Orphans is one, yeah, but that's a bit niche. Let's try to hit for something Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans,
But
where they basically got freedom to chart their own lives instead of being child
Yeah.
soldiers, being
Hmm.
enslaved child soldiers.
Child labor kind of thing.
Mhm.
but now that I think about it, I think that's a recurring theme in a lot of Gundam series where we have
It is.
countries and
That's canon.
nations that are trying to fight for their own independence or for their own freedoms.
Or rather, well, Gundam is like full of themes depending on the particular series, but it's full of themes covering either child soldiers or transhumanism or both, and also a post Earth
But why is freedom so
political.
important though? I mean, if you're looking at anime or fiction, why does it seem like it's so important for people that they would die for it?
That is a good question.
Kasi, I mean, one thing with freedom is because now there's a lot more genuineness within. You get to know more about the person, I guess, instead of them just repeating whatever it was um,
That went
told to
before.
them to be said, kind of things.
Like
Like,
there's more authenticity to
yeah,
what person can be, or at least that's what
that's
we
one
think.
thing.
It can be your real self, I guess, is a common theme, right?
Hmm.
Um, although that also calls into question, like, how do you know what your real self is? Different. Uh, yeah, definitely, that's one of the topics, or it's connected to it. That freedom allows you to explore possibilities. It allows you to test out different things.
Awesome.
Now, whether or not those things are actually good or not, well, I guess that really depends, right?
All right. We have comments on the on the chat right now.
Yeah, sure.
AG Vega says, "Sup, John,"
Oh, hey, AG, long time no see.
and
An
then
old college buddy.
Mordecai says, "We either have freedom or we be programmed." You know?
Ah, that's an interesting thought. So we'd either have freedom or be programmed, which I think is like more close to what animals are, right? So human beings versus animals. So this is another interesting thought. Like what separates people from regular animals, or from animals rather, is the ability to exercise different choices or the freedom to exercise different choices. Because most animals, no matter how well you train them, they are fundamentally much more limited, di ba? With their instincts and their habitual pattern and their breed. Whereas people, um, well, we have a larger variety of choices which we can make in our lives, which are, it's not programmed, right?
Hmm.
Actually, I think it also goes back to ano no. When you think about it, it goes back to our previous discussion on free will and sovereignty of God.
Yeah.
No, I
That's
mean, to,
true.
I mean, di ba, parang, uh, God could have created us as robots, as followers of
Hmm.
Him, and yet instead He has given us free will and free choice to do what we see fit for ourselves, right?
True.
So, and I've always thought, bakit Lord, parang I think, I've always thought na parang, isn't this, ako parang, wouldn't it have been easier, Lord, to follow you if I didn't have my own personal desires? But then at the same time, if that were the case, then I'd just be following him, and there wouldn't really be a what do you call this? It would be like more like a hive mind of sorts, right?
Yeah, it's like you just created robots, and it's not the same as getting a affection from someone who actually chooses to
Hmm.
love you.
I guess
Yes.
that's the difference between like human beings, because as much as pets are adorable, um, generally speaking, if you treat them a certain way, they will respond a certain way, right? If you shower them with love, affection, food, care for them, most pets, cats, dogs, the usual one, will respond in general way. And sincere as it is, I think that's why some people say it's not. You can't really call it love because it doesn't. It's not a decision they make. It's just a natural response to how you treat them. Whereas
Well,
people, as we know, no matter how well you treat the person, if you get friend zoned, you're there. So it's like it doesn't mean I can shower you with gifts and affection that this person will automatically be like, "Oh, I love you." It's like no, they have a choice to reject you or not, right?
John, that escalated so quickly.
I escalated, but I mean, come on, that is a freedom. That is definitely a personal freedom
bakit
exercised
may
in a very relational manner.
bakit may
Diba?
pag-atake sa sa mga taong na friend
Because
zone?
it's also a trope that comes out in geek stuff a lot, really. Kasi
It is. It is.
Ayan, nag-comment na nga si Vince, bakit daw may pag-atake?
Sorry. But because that is part of life. And besides, spicy kung mag-atake ng ganun.
No, but
Alright.
I would argue though that even pets have their own free will to choose what they want to choose. Although despite the fact that it's instinctual, because unlike robots, if you program a robot a certain way, it's supposed to do that what it's programmed to do, right?
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Animals, you you have to condition them to do certain things,
True.
right? And hindi siya, and they can always go by instinct or they can go feral, and they won't do what you want to do, no?
Well, that does and can happen. But I guess maybe that's not the best way. But yeah, if you program a robot, generally speaking, if it's programmed correctly and all the systems are working as they should, then it'll really do a certain function. And animals are, I guess you could say animals are like halfway. Like they also have moods and ano, so they're not 100% like oh, but I meant like just as a general thought, you know. Generally speaking, hindi naman sila robots talaga. Pero they also have tendencies which can be trained for and it can be generally expected.
So parang
Idea.
parang dinosaurs in Jurassic World. Joke lang, raptors.
That's a very high tier of training right there. But yes.
So,
So
ako question ko lang din is, ano 'di ba, parang why is it that despite the fact that we have freedoms, we have free choice, free will, why can't we do what we want yung without with impunity? Ibig sabihin, you can do whatever you want, hindi siya pwedeng ganun. Even though we have freedoms.
practical answer is we live in a society with other people.
We live in a society.
Yeah, we do. Like we live with other
Or-
people. We live in a
or-
community. We can't just do whatever we want because it might.
well, I guess no. Here's the thing: like we are free to do what we want, but the problem is we're not free. We're not free from the consequences.
Yeah.
So it's like, see, I believe if there's any Assassin's Creed fans, it's one of those things from Assassin's Creed yung motto. Alright, everything is permitted, but yun nga, but they're not free from the consequences of what they do.
Tama naman.
And I think that actually parang calls back the verse that the Apostle Paul wrote to the Corinthians, where he says everything is permissible, but not everything beneficial. Everything is permissible, but not everything builds up. No? So
True.
in a sense, he's saying we can do all of these things, and yet is it really going to be helpful? Is it really going to be beneficial? Will it serve a greater purpose? No. No, and how does it? And I think you're right in a sense that there is because we live in a society. Yes,
Yeah.
our society also kind of dictates um, what our freedoms are and what our liberties are. And I think, sa totoo lang, I think in the Philippines we actually have a lot of freedoms and liberties.
We do.
No, I mean, compared to many like communist or fascist talaga. Fascist government
Like, well,
governments.
a lot of other more restrictive.
Yeah, so parang uh, countries some countries in the east of Asia
Mm-hmm.
no, um we can't even go online like this and talk about these things kasi baka i-shut down na tayo kagad, right? No. I
Yeah, there are a lot
remember
of countries in the world that have a
so
lot more restrictive policy.
I remember some time ago, I remember working and living in um, an East Asian country across Taiwan, and the mention of words like
Certainly.
uh, certain keywords like Tibetan independence would shut down your internet for a few seconds. So, ano nga there's this story about a friend of mine who was chatting with his barkada in the Philippines, and they kept using certain keywords, and his Yahoo Messenger would get disconnected every time. And he came to a point, guys, stop saying those words. I'm afraid that the police will just barge into his store and take him away.
Yeah, because it's yun nga, because they don't have the freedom to such.
So parang I think one of the things that we have here in the Philippines is the ability to really express ourselves. No, it's
Mhm.
that freedom.
Yeah, it is.
No, but does that mean then that because it is available to us, we should always use it?
Because there are times when it is what do you call that? You're exercising your freedom
Hmm.
might mean well, this is not a real good quote, I guess, but yung ano yun? Your freedom ends when it reaches someone else's no. So parang ano lang,
Yeah,
there are
I think
limits.
it's like what I said earlier. Like when it starts affecting others,
Oo. It's
that's
like
when
how and then how it affects others, depending on
Hmm.
how it affects others. So it's basically there are laws that protect each other from each other. Diba? I
Mm.
think that's the thing.
Yes, yes, yes. I agree with that. No? So how do we become? I guess the question Doreen says here. Sorry, I just saw her comment. In South Korea, they have to use their land registration number to be able to use their Facebook equivalent account.
Mm,
So, that's true. It has to be tracked. No, hindi pwedeng uh, you cannot have a Facebook account or whatever to be anonymous. No, so they
right.
actually sometimes if you are looking towards safety and security, you have to exchange it with certain liberties, 'di ba?
The anonymity thing.
Yeah. I remember
Although,
sorry,
uh,
go on.
now, although personally, I don't think that's a bad thing because even in the Philippines, there are laws that are pushing towards having people's Facebook accounts related to their actual identity because of the prevalence of troll accounts, among other things,
Yep.
and scam accounts. So, for the protection of people online and to enforce, I guess, responsible use of social media, they're trying to tie it to your actual identity.
Ako agree ako doon. I think there are things that uh needs to be regulated. And I think so, the problem because social media, the freedom of use on social media is quite abused. You know,
Yeah,
no,
get it.
I think parang people use it with impunity, and I think that's why it's so prevalent in the US where what do you call this? Um and even in Japan, I think this is a big problem where cyberbullying has become
So
as an issue.
common.
It's a societal issue
Yeah.
in Japan, in the US, because there's a level of anonymity that you can just sign up for a social media account. You don't have to be registered or anything like that, and um, you know, it's not connected to any identification, so you can be anonymous, and you can bully anyone, and you can send messages and whatever. And some say that it's only words, but sometimes words are really hurtful.
Yeah, they are. So we do know that talagang may ano yan, may effect siya sa tao.
I think another thing that I also want to ask
Mm.
is because this is something that came up recently with some of the people I talked about is uh our use of freedom when it comes to consuming content. Are
Mm,
we is it okay to consume all kinds of content, or is there something that we have to be responsible about it as well?
right. Well, I want to give Gio a bit of a chance to talk because
Mm.
ako yung sobrang daldal ngayon.
Hi, what was the question again?
um
No.
Talking about
Yes.
content,
Yeah.
in the freedom of being able to consume content, and is it okay to just consume whatever we want when it comes to videos, to media content, etc.?
To literature, everything.
I mean, I guess it boils down to like what JD mentioned in verse kanina. Yung everything's permitted, but is it beneficial? I think like um sure, like we can do that. Like there's different kind of benefits. It doesn't always have to be like, oh, this is to teach me this kind of thing. It could also be for your own mental health, I guess.
Hmm.
Like if it's there to help you relax, or so. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, like but if like you're already at the point and then you're still doing it, then it's not so healthy anymore and should be looked at, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. I agree. Uh, Basically, yeah. So you take a look at what you're doing and what are you consuming? Does it help you? Does it help you relax? Does it help you engage with people better? Does it help you engage with yourself better? You know, um, because in the media we consume, content we consume or we absorb, influences how we think, how we behave, and what we think about. Right.
Hmm.
So, um, like, do we have the freedom to watch certain TV shows versus others? That also, and I also think it also depends on our how do you put it, person to person, case to case basis. And sorry, the airplane thing is getting, but I
Mm.
live near an airport. Uh, it depends. Like a certain media content, for example, or a certain game, right? If I play it versus, let's say, if John plays it, we might have two totally different interaction or
Right.
reaction to the game. Or if Gio played it, iba-iba yung reactions natin. So the freedoms we have, I guess, if you're trying to exercise it responsibly or in a healthy way, towards yourselves, towards others, you try to find and see what works healthily towards you, right? And yeah, and towards others. Because like if I consume a certain media or certain type of content and it changes how I, or it makes me grumpier, or it makes me like more dark moody or something, then maybe I shouldn't be really diving into that particular thing. Whereas if maybe John read it or watched it, it's just nothing to him, right? Which is a common thing. I mean, and this concept is what I'm also thinking, like, as Christians, what kind of movies do you watch, do not watch, games do you play, do not play? And the answer would be it depends, especially for adults, right? It depends greatly. So for some people, Harry Potter is a problem. For for others, it isn't. For some people, Stranger Things is a terrible show to watch. For others, it's just a show. So it depends on the person. Although again, some content is more understandably problematic than others. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to say that, oh, pornography is okay for me versus other people. That's no. It's like no. If I mean, speaking as a Christian, it's like no, pornography is a problematic thing to view,
Yeah.
given the kind of life you're trying to live. It doesn't match, diba? So there are a lot of things that fall under gray areas, but there are some things that I would say,
Are very
with
clear. Yeah.
which are quite very clear.
Yeah.
So
I think our
yeah,
basis would always go back. It will always go back to the Bible, right? I
uh,
mean,
principles, yes.
yeah, principally, I mean, if something like content, for example, um, is something that is against what the Bible teaches, then
Mhm.
that's where we start to question. Uh, no, for example, I will use Harry Potter as an example for now, and actually we're going to delve deeper into that next in 2 weeks' time as we talk about magic and the occult. No,
Mhm.
but
Woo!
and I think that's going to be spicy.
That's gonna, that's gonna be in. Yeah.
But like for example, Harry Potter. As an adult, I'm okay watching Harry Potter because I can discern that it's just fantasy. It's a made up story. It's not something that is real, right? But if you're a child who is watching Harry Potter for the first time, what kind of effect does that have on the child's consciousness? That it glorifies witchcraft and wizardry, magic, which the Bible says is what something that we shouldn't be doing, right? We
Mhm.
shouldn't be consulting with mediums and spiritists and anything that is connected to magical forces because they are not of God, right? That is usually what you can see in the Bible. So I think there really is a thin line, I guess, and there is that discernment. As a parent, would I want, as a parent, if I were a parent, would I want them to go watch Harry Potter at a young age? Probably not. No. Um.
Especially not unsupervised,
Yes.
which is
But
what the guidelines are for.
as an adult who personally I enjoy reading stories about uh things that are related to magic and knowing in my heart that that is just fiction, knowing in my heart that it's just made up, um I'm probably okay with it unless I become obsessive and addictive on those kinds of stories. Then there's that oops, that content may not necessarily be good for you anymore, right? So it really I think there's that line where we it's really important that we have a basis on uh what is okay and not okay based on what the Bible teaches, right?
So I think it's a good idea. Like we're moving into the concept of, as a Christian, we should exercise our freedom, or at least if you're a person who respects biblical values, then we should exercise our freedom with the Word of God basis. Diba?
Mhm.
And that's where we're trying to get at. Na, kasi doing things have consequence. I think we've I hope that people have caught that or thought that we've established that. Doing anything has consequences. So from a biblical perspective, how does that help us? Right? Diba? And why is it important that we act with a biblical perspective for those who are Christian?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, no? And yeah, Gio mentioned nga earlier that we're free to do anything, but we're not free from the consequences of those actions. And all of our actions have consequences, good or bad, right?
Mhm.
When we do something good, most likely we will be rewarded with something good. It comes back to us in good things. But when we do something bad, it also comes back to us badly, right?
Yeah.
It's like the question of let's say you're playing video games with other people, and your words are either you're trash talking to them or you are using words of encouragement, right?
Mm.
And if let's say you're trash talking, what is the result? They will trash talk back. And if you can't what's the saying, you if you can't if you can't take it, don't dish it out. Don't dish it
Mm.
out, right? So,
Oh,
and I think that makes a lot of sense, right? But if you want, if you want people to encourage you, it should start from you. Encourage them.
mm. That is true. So, so, bakit ba?
Wala lang.
I mean, it's like the rule of paying it forward kasi, no? Like parang or I mean there's a lot of like these quotes, be the change you want to see in others, yung mga ganun. But the I guess the using biblical ano is do unto others what you want them to do unto you, diba? How you want others to treat you, you do it first. Which is not the same as yung isang more philosophical one, which is do not do unto others what you don't want them to do, which is a bit more passive. It sounds the same, but it's not.
Yeah, you just saying don't do this thing onto them.
Yeah. So
Parang it's like keeping bad out versus the other one is you put more good into the word.
exactly. One is keeping bad out by not engaging in it. The other is I'm putting good into the work. So and that I think is a freedom we should all be exercising. The freedom to put good back into the world, which is supposed to be how we should exercise our Christian freedom,
Mm-mm.
right? Or biblically speaking, again, diba? How is it that people will know we're Christians? Supposedly, Christ told us is by how we love each other, how we
Yeah.
strengthen, encourage each other, how we help each other grow, how we protect each other, how we encourage each other. All of these ways, which are basically expressions of love towards each other, as a spiritual family. These
Which
things, there is no limitation.
And I'm glad that you brought that subject of loving others, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that what if I'm doing something that is not bad per se. It's neutral, it's not bad, but it's affecting someone negatively.
How does it affect them negatively? Because we might.
For example, sir,
For example, let's say you are playing music,
Hmm.
and
right?
this it can be even Christian music that you're playing, but the people around you are annoyed because they hear it and they don't want to hear it.
Ah, eh,
Is it
I
loving to
mean,
continue blasting that kind of music?
no matter how good you
I
think it
would
is.
say no because even it, I don't think it from the context it doesn't sound like something about the content of the music, but more on just constantly hearing.
Constantly disrupting other.
Yeah,
Right?
like
Uh,
it's disrupting their the stuff they're trying to do. Could
I
be I don't know. This just as a thought. Could be in a call. or they're trying to record something. I don't know.
or
Those
anything.
kind of things.
So
Yeah,
so
I
it
guess
really
I
is
guess
possible to do something that it's not bad per se, but it will affect someone else negatively.
yeah,
You can, yeah.
it is. It is very possible that you're doing something which might even be argued to be good, but what's good for you
Might not be good
might
for.
not be good for someone else, or it might be disrupting to someone. So that's where wisdom has to come in. Like you have to understand, like, oh, what are the mutual rights of people? Where's the context, the place, and all that. So these are like the, I suppose you could call it the gray areas that you have to figure out. What is the more loving thing to do?
Mhm. Yeah, parang when JB mentioned that, another thing that comes up a lot in nowadays is yung I guess people like use throwing the word snowflake around, where people are easily offended nowadays by things.
Yeah, that's something to think of. Because some people exercise their freedom very belligerently,
Literally.
very liberally. Like I exercise
Belligerent.
my freedom. I exercise my freedom very offensively. I'm like, because I am offended by everything that you do. I'm like, okay, that's where we also have to come into mind with wisdom. Na parang, let's be realistic here. Are the freedoms that we're enacting really? I don't know. Are they really a problem for people, or are they? I mean, some people exercise their right in such a negative way.
Sometimes it's not really about the action, just the person doing it that annoys them.
Yeah, yeah. Like I mean, just to use a meme culture, pop culture trope, Karens are very active. You call it a Karen, di ba? They're
Mhm.
very active exercisers of their so-called freedom. They exercise their freedom so much that it offends other people, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's a prime example of how not to exercise your so-called rights and freedoms, because um, that is a way of exercising your freedom in which you're only taking your own conveniences into consideration, and they're not thinking about what is the balance, what is the what is good for more people. Is it just good for me? I'm just protecting only myself, trying to get everything that's due only to me, which is, I guess, a one way of looking at yung typical Karen behavior. Is that they're just basically insisting on their own right to the detriment of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So
Doreen says that there are actions of ignorance, negligence, and apathy where we may be doing something that's not bad, but lumalabas yung ignorance, negligence, and apathy in our actions.
uh,
Apathy could be you don't care whether or not a person is affected, but you keep doing it anyway, and then that's apathy, really. No?
that's
And
I would
so,
I'd say apathy is not as a no go for us.
yes.
Ignorance is I guess for me, ignorance is excusable because you can learn.
Mm.
You can come from there
Yeah.
and you can learn,
I think
and
it's
you can make.
identifying your own ignorance, right? I mean,
Mhm.
being able to see that, and then knowing that, oh, I've been ignorant about this, I will change. No, I will. Ano.
Oh
But if
yeah.
you are ignorant and you continue to be, you're aware but you don't care.
And that becomes apathy,
Yes.
which is definitely a no go.
Pat Uy, hi Pat.
Hey,
Says,
pa.
wala akong tanong, opinion lang. I guess when the Bible talks about freedom, it's the freedom from sin. Sin that enslaves and binds us. But does it give us freedom to do what we want? No. Kaya nga sabi din sa Bible na we have to respect authority. Haha.
Mm.
1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 12.
Yeah, that's a very delicate thing too, though, because like we have to respect authority at the same time. That's a controversial thing,
It
especially
is.
given our recent
It is.
I
It is.
know political climate.
I think respecting authority is there's that. It's also a thin line, right? I mean, for me, it's respecting authority is to do what the government says, to as long as it doesn't go against the Bible, and everything else is obedience to
Mhm.
God, right? So if there is something that is, for example, um, exercising your freedom of speech to give feedback to something that is not right, it's not. It is not a disrespectful to authority, but because in fact you are giving the feedback so that authority can improve, right? But of course, if you do it in armed rebellion, that is disrespectful, disrespectful to authority.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. So like you're using your the what do you call it? Approved
Process,
method.
methods, yes.
Uh,
Sabi ni Vince Belligerent, you calling me?
Hello to our belligerent friend.
Yes. So there's a
Mm.
respectful way of reacting. I think even with talking to our parents, which is our after God is our first authority in our lives, is that we can honor them and not necessarily mean that we have to obey every single word, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good example. Sa how do especially sa Asian communities, di ba?
Yes.
The the power structure between us and parents is very tight. I could say. Like, how does that work out for us? Diba?
Yes.
So
So I think that's really being because like for example, your parents may not always be right. They may even be biblically wrong, especially if they're not Christians, right? And so,
mm,
but there is still a way to be respectful to them without having to necessarily have to obey directly what they're saying, right?
or rather obey blindly.
Yes,
This
because of
this this qualifies is that especially when you're also an adult, as opposed to minor children.
yes,
So that's to be distinct.
yeah, and I think we have to also understand that blind obedience.
Uh,
Sorry, let me rephrase that. Let's understand that submitting to authority doesn't mean blind obedience. There we go. Right.
mm,
So we have to also be discerning enough to understand what are things that we can obey and there are things that is just not biblically sound. Okay. Pat says authority is so broad. Could also apply to your parents, church leaders, boss sa work, basta exercise your freedom wisely. And I agree. Agree.
we exercise it with man. It's like exercising truth. We exercise truth with grace and humility. So just we exercise our freedom with grace and humility as well as with love, right? For each other.
Vince naman says, lalo na yung ano daw, if you are being taught to lie so that you can get money. You're being
I
taught by your parents to lie so that you can get money.
so that is a very clear example of real life authority. And if you're a Christian or at least a person of
Being godly.
of decent moral thinking or ethical thinking, um, a parent teaching you to lie to get something that you shouldn't be getting if you were honest and telling the truth
Mhm.
is definitely a no-go. I mean, unless you want to raise kids who are liars, with meaning they would also lie to you. So I don't know if you want that, but from a biblical standpoint, that is definitely a no-go. So
Yep.
if you want to teach your kids in a way that you can trust them, and if you're teaching your kids to lie, how can you trust your kids? you know,
Yeah.
that's one thing. I mean,
Nalala ko yung example of a friend of mine. Or basta the testimony. I can't even remember anymore. But the story goes that he's an accountant, and the boss asked him to quote unquote fix the books, but in a way that is actually legal. In a sense, it's legal but not really ethical, because there are loopholes in laws, right? And sometimes you
Yeah.
can get away with those loopholes, but it's not necessarily ethical. And he didn't want to do it because he didn't feel that it was right. Right? And he told his boss, and if I he stood up to his boss about it, and he didn't want to do it. And I forgot what happened to him, but basically he was I forgot if he was fired or he was transferred to another job or something.
Mm.
But he felt that his conscience was clean, and he was okay with the what do you call that, the the consequence of what he did. And he got, he found himself in a place where he was actually blessed more, afterwards. So I think it's really that understanding, that discernment, uh, that there are things that even though they are legal, they are not necessarily ethical or even biblical for that matter, right?
Yeah. Correct. Very correct.
Right. So, and Vince says not teaching daw, forcing to do it.
Yeah.
May hugot to si
So,
Vince, ha?
oh, so
Yeah.
so I guess just coming out of it, it's like, syempre kung if you're of an older age and these things are happening to you, or if you're old enough to resist and do something, um, please don't participate in exercising your freedoms incorrectly, right? So, yun
Yeah.
lang.
So I think at the end of the day, when we talk about exercising freedoms and being responsible with them, is that understanding number one, we can't do just anything that we want to do. Because our actions all have consequences, like Gio said earlier, right? And then I think it's also having that discernment, and I think this is why it's important that we are one with the Holy Spirit, to understand whether or not something is good or bad, whether or not something is something we should be doing or not be doing. Because sometimes when we're not in tune with the Bible and not in tune with the Word of God, the lines become blurred, and we become okay doing things that are not necessarily
Good.
good, right?
Kasi yung conscience mo nabubura eh. Diba? A person's conscience can be eroded over time. So, something to pay attention. So, what else do we have, you think? Christian freedom. How else do you think we should tap? Oh, I think we're having a little technical difficulty from John's end.
Yep, I think so.
There
His
So-
mic can't be heard.
Hello.
it has popped
I
out.
hear it now.
Hello.
You
Can
are-
you hear me now?
You have returned.
I have returned. Okay. I don't know what happened. I think it went loose. Anyway, I was saying that I had personal experience where I had very strong convictions against taking drugs, but then by hanging out with a group of friends that are okay with drugs, I became, not that I took drugs, but I became like, it's okay. If they want to do it, they can do it. It suddenly, my conviction suddenly started to to be
Adjust.
to adjust and become more like, I'm okay with it. So it really is understanding that we have to go back to the Bible, go back to the Holy Spirit, when we talk about uh, exercising freedoms. And yes, Vince, we had a problem with my USB. It was kind of loose. So
Yeah, I went.
yes,
Great.
when I actually have budget, I might update my microphone. But this is a good microphone anyway. All right, so that being said, it's 8:30, and I think We can
Okay, ask
actually.
me a closing statement. What is a closing statement you'd like to leave before we close for the?
Good question. Good question. By the way, Ben said earlier, everything is permissible, but not everything is Ben and Ben.
Hmm, true. Or
And
Ben and Jerry.
Ben and Jerry's. Right. All right. So, for me, it's really it's very, it's great that we have freedoms, but we need to be responsible with how we use them, because what we do always affects others, especially with our speech. And I am reminded of a proverbs. Let me just pull it up because I don't always remember it word for word. Ooh, shucks.
I see.
It there the tongue has power over life and death, and those who
Ah,
love it will eat its fruit. Basically, if we don't use our words responsibly, especially in our freedoms, then we will what do you call this? It will come back to us in return. We
yeah.
will receive the consequences of those actions. Right?
It's like the pop culture version of karma, right? What goes
Yes.
around comes around.
Yes. While we
From
don't
a
believe in karma because karma is connected to reincarnation, which is not not
yeah, we don't
biblical.
believe in either karma, whether the pop culture one or the actual
Yeah.
religion.
But we do believe that,
What
what
goes
goes
around?
around comes around. If it doesn't hit
Maybe,
you now, it will hit you eventually because all actions have consequences.
so we might not see it now, but it does eventually.
Catch up to you.
Mm,
Very much.
What about you, Gio? Last words,
Nothing much. I mean,
Any last word?
final words. Mi
hmm,
ultimo at joke lang.
I think you guys pretty much said it really. I mean, then I've been saying it kanina. Like yung sa, yeah, yung consequent, we are all free to do what we want,
Mhm.
but not free to choose our consequences. So, yeah, with that in mind, just everyone, whether Christian or not, it's just something to, a good reminder because even in this gaming, there's a lot of toxicity because
Mm,
they hide behind the fact that it's just a game.
yeah, but you are actually very. So that is a problem.
So,
Oh, we
yeah,
have a comment here. I missed it kanina. Sorry, this is on the YouTube channel. Yay. A YouTube fan.
Nice.
There are two kingdoms that are constantly at war in our lives. The kingdom of this world ruled by the lies and deceit, and the kingdom of righteousness ruled by an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present God. I love it.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, that is true. So I guess a way of putting it is what direction are you exercising your freedoms towards? Are you exercising your freedoms in a way that you're preparing yourself to live as a citizen in a kingdom of righteousness or in a kingdom of darkness? So
awesome. Awesome. Any last words, John?
no, I think that will suffice for my final statement.
All right.
Yo,
So that's it for us this evening on freedom. And again, happy Independence Day to many countries
this
um,
month of July.
this month of July. So again, next in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be talking about magic in the occult and how should geeks, especially Christian geeks, deal with it. How do we discern which is good, which is bad, and how we should react to it, right? And we're gonna take a look at the extremes where everything is permissible and where everything is a deal with the devil. So,
Yeah.
and if you actually want to know more about what we do here in Level Up, please visit us on our Discord. The Discord link is in the comment section, which I have pinned. Right, that's invite.gg/lugn. Okay, and before we go, Doreen says, we should check ourselves before you wreck ourselves. Before you wreck yourself. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Which is
That's
good.
nice.
I like the quote. So there you go. If you want to learn more, if you want to discuss things about life, about geekery, about games, about this topic in depth, join us on our Discord. We're ready to listen and we're ready to uh, be part of your community. So be part of our community as well. All right.
Yes, sir.
And that's it for this evening. Thank you guys for joining us. This is John B. Um, and this is Level Up Geek Nights podcast. See you soon. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Do, 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 do.